Hey, cuz.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Big Hawk from the Atlantic Drive Compton Crips. Now, Big Hawk was born Earl Solomon, February 2nd, 1967, in Compton, California. Now, he will be raised on the east side near Atlantic Drive. Now, as a youth, Earl would see Compton at a time when many black families were coming in from LA to get away from the violence. But Compton would soon be plagued with the same issues that most families were running away from. Now, Earl's family, like many families in Compton, would struggle as the city would start to spiral into despair as the manufacturing jobs were no longer available and government funding was being pulled. Now, also, violence that mainly plagued LA would now become a prominent issue in Compton, from stabbings to robberies and just violence in general. Now, at the time, the Compton police was heavily underfunded, so crime was happening quite often. Now, most of the schools, similar to the police department, lacked funding also. Now, eventually, a lot of the black residents would start to actually move out of the city of Compton as the gangs in Compton began to form and started causing a lot of problems. But Earl's family would be one of the many families that would choose to stay. Now, by the late 70s, the section where Earl grew up at, he, along with his friends, would start their own gang, and they would go by Atlantic Drive Compton Crips. Now, Earl would be amongst many of the teens who would be a part of the original Atlantic Drive set. He would go by the nickname Big Hawk. Now, directly next to them were the Kelly Park Compton Crips, who they would have extremely close ties with. They would also have an alliance with the Southside Compton Crips, along with the Santana Blocc Compton Crips. Now, once the 80s hit, Atlantic Drive Crips were in full effect in the city of Compton with a deadly reputation. Now, Big Hawk, along with his homies, were constantly getting into fights with the Compton Pirus up at Dominguez High School almost on a daily basis. But when he wasn't at school, Big Hawk would be out in the streets hustling to make money. Now, around 1983, there would be a documentary on the gang violence throughout the city of Compton, and Big Hawk, along with other members like Lil Sherm, will also be featured in this documentary.
If you go to Dominguez, you up there for two reasons: to get ladies and beat up rude boys. It's all starting and make money. And the damn thing funny, you know, everything's for real.
Now, by the mid-80s, the entire landscape from LA to Compton would change once cocaine flooded and hit the streets. Now, the Atlantic Drive Compton Crips will get heavy into the dope game, with some of the most prominent figures who were most feared, like the Batts brothers, Tracy, and Dynasty Dave. Name will start ringing bells throughout the city, and they will be heavy into the street game. Now, the same drugs that will make a lot of the Crips money in the city will also be the same drugs that turn former allies to deadly enemies. Now, the Atlantic Drive Compton Crips and the Santana Blocc Crips will get into a deadly dispute over a dope deal, and things will turn violent. And in 1988, things will go from bad to worse after Tracy Batts' brother, Dynasty Dave, was shot and killed by members of the Santana Blocc on November 11th. Now, only months later, after the death of Dynasty Dave, in February 1989, OG Turtle from the Santanas was out in Linwood with some of his homies when he would be shot multiple times in the legs and stomach, killing him. Now, the rumors are that members of Atlantic Drive were the shooters, and this was a payback hit for the death of Dynasty Dave. But as the violence continued out in the streets between Atlantic Drive and Santana, Big Hawk would find himself being arrested on burglary charges, but eventually he would bond out. Now, with the death of Turtle and the death of Dave from Atlantic Drive, things in Compton was about to get much, much worse. Now, in 1989, a Santana Blocc Crip named Potato Head would be out and about in Long Beach. Now, he was unaware at the time that a few Atlantic Drive Compton Crips were also in that area, and that Atlantic Drive Crip was Tracy Batts, one of the most feared members of Atlantic Drive. Now, Batts would catch Potato Head slipping and open fire. Now, Potato Head would be wounded in this shooting, but he would survive his injuries. Now, these back and forth shootings between Atlantic Drive and Santana Blocc will continue, but this was only the tip of the iceberg, because next, one of the most violent murders was about to take place in the city of Compton. On April 3rd, 1989, at around 12 p.m., Kelly Park Crips and Atlantic Drive were having a Sunday cookout at Kelly Park. Now, Big Hawk would make his way to the park to kick it with his homies. Now, there were nearly 100 people in attendance at this party, which included other ally hoods that were on good terms with Kelly Park and Atlantic Drive. Now, throughout the day, everyone was enjoying themselves, having a good time, listening to music, playing basketball, and even barbecuing. Now, everything will continue to go well, but at around 6 p.m., most of the people will start to head back home. But Big Hawk would decide to stay and hang back and talk to a couple females who were parked out in front of the police substation in a black Celica. Now, these two females was Tammy Elridge and Ava Williams, who had their 3 kids in the car with them. Now, Tammy was in the driver's seat and Ava was seated in the passenger seat holding her 1-year-old son. Now, Big Hawk would stand outside of the car talking to both females as they were laughing and joking. Now, in the distance, a 1977 white Cadillac coupe could be seen pulling up at Castlegate and Caldwell. Now, inside this car was members of the Santana Blocc Compton Crips. Now, as that white Cadillac made his way down Caldwell Street, Potato Head would lean out the passenger side window holding an AK-47. Now, as he got closer to the park, he suddenly would open fire. He would let off more than 15 shots, shooting at people inside the park. Now, as he passed Big Hawk, he would then turn around and open fire, shooting Big Hawk in the head. He would continue to fire, shooting inside the Celica, also hitting Ava Williams as she sat in the passenger seat. Tammy would then start the car up and make her way down Butler Avenue. Now, as Big Hawk laid on the ground bleeding, a man named Terry would run up to Big Hawk's side to try to stop the bleeding. Now, Big Hawk's homie, by the name of Chico from Atlantic Drive, would witness the shooting, and he would hop in the Chevy Cavalier armed with a 4.5. And he would immediately start to chase after Potato Head's white Cadillac. Now, while driving behind him, he would start to open fire, and this would lead to a shootout between both cars. But as Chico is on side of Potato Head's car, he will be struck multiple times by gunfire, being hit in his shoulder and his head, causing him to crash. Now, shortly after Chico crashed his car, the Compton police would arrive on scene, and they would find Chico inside the Cavalier, bleeding from that headshot. Now, police would call for backup and also call for EMTs. Now, once the EMTs arrive, they would find Big Hawk lying in front of the police substation with a gunshot wound to the head. And sadly, Big Hawk will be pronounced dead at the scene at the age of 22. Now, police will also get word that there was another gunshot victim not far from Kelly Park near Castlegate and Adana. Police and EMTs would arrive, and they will find Ava Williams with a gunshot wound to the face as she lay slumped over in the passenger seat. And sadly, Ava Williams would also be pronounced dead at the scene. Now, the only gunshot victim who would survive, that would be Chico from Atlantic Drive, and he will be transported to the hospital where he will be treated. Now, due to the extent of his injuries, he would recover, but he will be left blind from one of his eyes due to the bullet. Now, police would start to canvass the area, and they would be approached by only one witness who would come forward, and that would be Terry, who had attended to Big Hawk as he laid on the ground. Now, Terry will go on to tell the police that the shooter was Potato Head from Santana Blocc. Now, the police would grab photos, and they would show him a picture of the possible suspect, and Terry would pick out the picture of Paul Watson, aka Potato Head. Now, as the police continued to search the scene, they would find AK shell casings and also 4.5 shell casings, which were shot from Chico's gun. Now, once they had the ID of the shooter, they would start to search for Potato Head, but unfortunately, they had no luck, even after reaching out to some of his family members. Now, over the next several months, police will continue looking for him, but still will come up empty-handed. But on August 31st, Compton PD would get word that Bakersfield police had a lead on Potato Head. Eventually, the Bakersfield police would arrest Potato Head at a nearby apartment complex, and they would also find a 1977 Cadillac parked in the driveway. Now, this Cadillac did not match the same Cadillac that was identified by the witnesses at the scene, but police would soon realize after running the car plate and the registration that the car was originally registered as a white vehicle, and this would lead the police to finding out that Potato Head had the car painted from white to black. Now, also while searching the vehicle, they would find AK shell cases in the car. Now, forensic testing would show that the bullet fragments found from the black Toyota Celica in which the victim Ava Williams was killed in would match that of an AK. Now, the autopsy report for both Big Hawk and Ava would also come back. Now, for Ava Williams, it would show that the bullet had traveled through her cheek, then traveled through her nose before stopping in the front of her brain, which ended up killing her. Now, Big Hawk had suffered from a subarachnoid hemorrhage with a massive laceration as the bullet tore through his brain, causing him to bleed out. Now, after being transported back to Compton, Potato Head would be charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Now, during his trial, the prosecution would call multiple witnesses to testify, and the very first witness was Terry, the same man who spoke with police on scene. Now, he would once again tell the jury that he had witnessed Potato Head aim directly at the Toyota Celica, shooting Big Hawk in the head, and also shooting Ava in the car right before fleeing the scene. Now, he would admit that a lot of people in the neighborhood had stopped talking to him once they had found out that he had planned on testifying during this trial. Now, the next witness was Tammy, who was driving the car which Ava Williams was shot in. Now, she would testify and identify Potato Head as the shooter that she saw that day. She would testify that after Ava was shot, that her head fell into her lap. Now, another witness would come forward named Henry Williams, who would testify that a black Celica had pulled up outside their house, and inside that vehicle was a young woman who was shot in the face. And that woman was Ava Williams, who was still holding her son. Now, in return, the defense would call their own witnesses. And one of their first witnesses was Evil Kurt from Southside Compton Crips. Now, Evil Kurt would testify that he was at the park that day, that he saw a beige and black car, which was possibly a Cutlass or Monte Carlo, driving by the park. He would go on to testify that he saw Chico from Atlantic Drive chasing behind these cars when he heard the gunshots. But he would tell the courts that he did not see the shooters who Chico was chasing after. Now, next they would call a female witness named Miller, who would corroborate Evil Kurt's story that the cars that were involved in the shooting were beige and black cars, possibly Cutlasses. Now, the very last witness was one of Big Hawk's friends from Atlantic Drive Compton Crips named Joseph. Now, he would tell the court that it was 2 men shooting from a white Cadillac, and neither of those men were Potato Head. Now, he would claim that the shooter that he saw in the car had long hair and was skinny. Now, even with these testimonies supporting that Potato Head wasn't the shooter, the jury didn't believe it. And by the end of the trial, Paul Watson, aka Potato Head, would be found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, and he would be sentenced to death. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.